So good morning, everybody. It's a 10:01. We're just welcome everyone. Um, this is a special session this morning, and we're going to do these. Jill and I are going to host one of these about every 6 to 8 weeks. We'll have some special guests and a special agenda as we move forward. But this is going to be a powerful 2 hour. We'll probably end early. Okay. I am going to have Mike Landrum on. Okay, so who knows where it's going to end up with that, right? But anyway, so this is going to be a special 2 hour session. If you can, just hang with us and get to where maybe there's not many distractions. Grab your notepad and all of that, because we've got a lot of good things to talk about. I especially want to welcome any new associates to our company. It's so important that you plug in because you know what, many times you don't know how bad you need something until after you get it. And so, the thing about it is, another reason that's so important is you're the future. You are the future of this company. So I've got Jill here with me over there still across my desk working on her fine-tuning her notes. She'll be sharing a little bit later. We've got Dan Hall, which I'll bring up in a few minutes. Dan and I've been friends over 30 years. And Dan is he's an entrepreneur. He's a great business coach, a family coach. He's done so many events for us. I mean, there's no way I could count them. Everything from a marriage workshop. He's been in ministry for decades now. But like I said, we go back over 30 years. And he's done many, many events for our team. But he's also my pastor, our pastor, out at our little town of Livingston out there. So it's just incredible what the Lord's doing there. So we're glad to have Dan here this morning. He's going to be sharing a great message. And then we've got Daniel Crillo. I mean, Daniel Crillo, he's a future $1 million, 7-figure builder up in Canada. Came with us when he was very young, dating Sandra. And then they got married. They've got this beautiful family. He's headed toward basically 700K right now in income, but just up in the Ontario area. And then so Daniel's going to be sharing that. Dan, also Mike, my brother Mike, not only my younger brother, but NFL player. Then 30 years ago, came a little over 30 years ago, came to work with me. And I just said, Mike, look, just give me 90 days. Just give me 90 days and let's see what can happen. And the rest is history. They've got 5 kids, 5 grandbabies now. And boy, he and Amy, what an awesome leadership team they're building. I think maybe 80 RVPs now or something like that. And but headed toward the 2 million in income. So proud of them. But I was thinking this week and thinking about this morning, 4 decades ago, that's a long time, right? That's like a generation. And 4 decades ago, I had gotten out of the military. I was a full-time college student. And, Jill and I had gotten married, had been married less than a year. And you know what, y'all folks, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. The thought of corporate America just nauseated me. I just wanted to own my own business. And I had no idea what that would look like or whatever. But Jill worked at the bank, helping me to get through college. We were actually she was going to night school. But the thing about it is I wanted to be able to be the go-to person for our family, not only my immediate family, but also my family, my mom and dad, Jill's mom and dad. And, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I went in the military right after Vietnam. I joined the military, but I had low confidence, didn't really believe in myself. I was afraid. Everything about business intimidated me. And so that was real scary. And so anyway, and then that friend of mine came over to see Jill and I and shared with us about what we do for people. And, at that time, he said, look, David, I can give you some income protection that would create that instant estate. I could give you $100K worth of term insurance, death benefit for $17 a month. And then I can put you in a tax deferred annuity. Back then, we had a tax deferred annuity before we started selling mutual funds. Okay, it was paying like 12% interest, right? Of course, that was when Jimmy Carter was president, which I won't even go there. Okay, I almost feel like we're going back there now, right? But anyway, that's a whole different deal. But he said, I can put you in this tax deferred annuity that would do that. And then we could use, the money you're already spending. We were already, our financial game plan, Jill and I, we were paying 60 bucks a month on whole life. So I said, man, I could put 17 toward 100K coverage instead of 40. I could take the difference and put it in a 12% account, which my cash value didn't even build up anything for the first couple of years. And so anyway, and it was no pressure. It was no gimmick. It was no pressure. And I just remember thinking, I said, man, what he's saying makes sense to me. I mean, I understood what he was saying. And the thing about it is, people started popping in my mind while he was explaining it to me. I thought about my sister, my first cousin, my next door neighbor, and people started popping in my mind. And he said, look, David, there's also a way that you could actually work in the business. He said, I'm just getting started. He and I started first grade together. He was living up here in Jackson. He said, I'm just getting started. And you work your own hours, your own boss, no quotas. And I said, man, Don, if you could get me on doing something like that, I mean, I could do this, because number one, I believe in it, right? And so anyway, so the next weekend, the founder, Art Williams, was here in Jackson. And so I came up and heard Art Williams for the first time that next weekend. Wasn't in the business yet. And so anyway, but heard Art Williams, and it was incredible. And Art, he said things like, he said, look, that next weekend, he said, listen, this little 2-year-old company at that time, we were 2 years old. He said, listen, we probably ain't gonna make it. We probably aren't going to make it. And I love the transparency of that. He said, we probably won't make it, but if we do, it's going to be big, because we're going to do the right thing. And man, he just fired my butt up. And I thought, man, I said, this is it for me. And, so I took a chance. And so the rest is history. I'm so proud of our company. Man, I am so proud of Primerica, our company. It's an honor. To me, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be in this business. And, the thing about it is, our company, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. We're getting ready in the next 90 days to head to Atlanta 2022, our national convention, the first one in 3 years, right? And man, let me tell you, folks, our company, we are entering a new era. Our company, this is the beginning of where we're headed. We're not even 50 years old yet. Go look at the companies you've heard of and look at their history, how old they are, right? We're still a teenager of a company. And so I'm proud of our company, but you know what? I'm also proud of our team. And the thing, like when I look at our company within a company, that was one of the things that inspired me the most, is that when they said you could build a company within a company and you can put your own personality into it. And let me tell you, I just want to share just a few things that the reason I'm proud of our team, right? Which all of you, many of you are part of that. The thing about it is, when I think about who we are as a team, okay, and what I wanted to happen, okay, as our team grew over the years and my vision started growing, et cetera, you know, man, we aren't the loudest. We aren't the loudest team in Atlanta. There'll be louder teams, right? Okay, there'll be, you know, dressed alike and stuff like that and all that crap. So, I mean, that's fine if you're going to do that. And I think that's great. But we aren't the loudest. But since day one, okay, I wanted to build a professional company, which means when I talk about professional, I'm talking about authentic and genuine, right? And you know, integrity and all the things that go along with being professional, and treating everybody like a family member from a client perspective, doing what's right for them, right? Not what's best for you. You know, here we don't have to chase dollars. Here we do the right things and the dollars chase us, right? And people can spot a phony how far away? About a mile, right? Okay, so genuine, authentic, professional, do the right thing. That's who we are, right? You know, servant leadership. Man, how do you put a price tag on that? Where, you know, that's really, you know what that's about, loving and caring about people. May sound corny to a lot of business people, right? But man, loving and caring about people. I learned how to serve in the Army as a squad leader in basic training. And I learned how to serve at the health club when I managed the health club. And I just served people, took care of them, cared about them. We build leaders. Our hierarchy, we build leaders. You know, we create an environment where leaders can identify themselves. See, here, we don't say, hey, you're a leader, you're not a leader. Hey, today, what we do, we create an environment and you stick your head up above the crowd. Leaders identify themselves, okay? And we just create that environment. You know, to me, where we are, to me, is we're a safe place where you're not having to look over your shoulder and think, man, who's out to get me or whatever. Here you can plant your flag and say, man, this is where I'm gonna win for my family and my dream and my goals and my community, right? I don't know, you can build a family business here. You look at a lot of our hierarchies in our organizations in our company, within the company, man, it's a partnership, husband, wife, right? Or you know, a person and their mom or their best friend or whatever. And we believe in partnerships, right? And then also, to me, you know, the marketplace, I love the marketplace, right? I don't stand behind hardly any pulpits in a church and preach, but to me, I love the marketplace. To me, I love being out here, right? The marketplace is my ministry, right? You know, I have people, I heard someone say, you know, how do you know, when are you going to retire? I keep hearing that, you know, a lot of my friends my age or whatever, they're retiring. I'll hear them say, hey, when are you going to retire? And, you know, I heard someone say the other day, how do you retire from purpose, right? I learned that from my dad. He never retired. We lost him a couple of years ago at 88, right? And man, he was still getting up every morning and going. And so anyway, that's what we have a chance to do here. To me, this is a place you can, as Jill and I coined the phrase, you can age gracefully, right? Maybe. And you know, many of us, I think about our team. Okay, many of us have been together for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Some of us 40 years. Folks, that is a generation that we've been together, and we built this family, right? And it's a generation, and now many of our kids are coming in the business, you know, and it's that next generation. So really, to me, as our hierarchy, I believe, America, man, we're entering a new era. It's going to happen in 90 days in Atlanta, Georgia. That new era is going to begin to unfold. But I believe our hierarchy, this is just the beginning. And what we've got in place now, to me, in our hierarchy, is the foundation. So today is going to be awesome, and we're going to kick it off with my friend, my pastor. He's the one that keeps me straight. He and Jill will have conversations about me every once in a while about so. But anyway, I'm kidding. I may not be kidding, but anyway. But Dan, I appreciate you sharing with us today. So I'm gonna thank you so much, and we appreciate you. So I'm turning it over.
Yeah, I think you're missing the volume of how often we talk about you. So to say a little bit would be a little underestimation. And as far as aging gracefully, David and Jill are a great illustration of some who do and some who don't. And I'll let y'all figure out which one's which. It is really good to see you guys here today. Some of y'all know me, some of you do not. David always does a gracious job introducing me. I do have a lot of love and appreciation for these guys, and have walked through a lot of ups and downs and valleys and mountains, and even in our own relationship, have had to navigate some difficult seasons. And when you get to, I used to hear men say, if you get to your 60s and 70s with 2 or 3 close friends, you are a blessed man. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. We have lots of seasonal friends. Doesn't make them bad. Just there's seasons that people come and go, and then there's people that keep popping up in your life and keep bringing value, and you hope you're bringing value to them. So I'm grateful for David and Jill, and I'm a pretty loyal guy, and so even in areas where I've messed up or they've messed up, we've always seemed to come back. Is one thing I've appreciated about David, is his loyalty. So David, thanks for giving me an opportunity to be here. So those of you who don't know me, I'm a quadriplegic. There are different levels of that. Without explaining all that, bottom line is I don't have any functional movement below my neck. I can't really move my arms. I have no use of my fingers. So I live my life above my shoulders, and I can shrug my shoulders. That's the best dancing I can do. My kids said I danced just like I did before my injury. So apparently I wasn't a good dancer then either. But that explains this box in front of me. So you'll see me doing this. That's my joystick that I work my mouse with on my computer. So you'll be seeing me do this. This is my straw. That's what hooks me up to my my water. And so I'm able to sip that throughout the meeting. And if you see me doing that, that's just because my throat's getting dry. So hopefully that explanation will allow you to look over the box. And then finally, you'll see me doing this because I don't have notes. I have to look over somewhere else for those notes. So if you can tolerate all of those aspects, I hope we can have a great session this morning. Some of y'all may have heard about the gynecologist that took his car into the muffler shop to get fixed, and he's watching it. He's watching the mechanic work, and he's watching him take the muffler off and put it back on and test it, and everything was coming out okay, and made some adjustments and started it again, and everything was finally working right, and the exhaust was coming out the exhaust pipe correctly. And the mechanic looked at the gynecologist and said, I like to think that you and I kind of do the same job. We help kind of make sure everything's flowing okay. And the gynecologist looked at him and said, well, that may be true, but try doing it with the engine still running. Well, whenever we're looking at our jobs and careers, we're all looking at what we're good at, if I can mess up my English that way. And we were talking recently, Dave and I were chatting, and I threw out something that I had done years ago that I used with clients called Strength Finders. If you've done Strength Finders 2.0 or Clifton Strengths, you'll know what I'm talking about, but it's a study in people's strengths. And David said, boy, I'd like you to talk about that. So if you've heard me speak before, I tend to be highly motivational with instruction about personal life and development. Today, I'm going to dig into a much more teaching role, and I want to talk to you. If you'll give me just a second, I'll get our PowerPoint set up here. All right. Well, David, it's not letting me do it. Do I still have access to that, Dave? There we go. All right. Let's start here. All right, everybody see that okay? I'm not always great with artwork, so
you're good.
You'll just have to bear with me here. So let's talk some time this morning. Let's take the next 30, 40 minutes to talk about maximizing your strengths and why that's important. What motivates personal growth? What motivates team growth? What motivates business growth? Most often, these growths are built around improving and in some ways accentuating our negatives. For instance, in a formal evaluation, if you've ever worked for a company, which I have, as a pastor, you tend to work for companies. And when you go into formal evaluations, what do? They usually give you the positive, but they always have a category called opportunities for improvement, right? And those opportunities for improvement are their chance to be able to say, here's some things you need to improve on. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I mean, people want to know where they can do better. But even if the overall evaluation is laudatory, there's always this kind of focus. It's like the IRS, they're going to find something wrong. But here's the problem. What they've done over the last 50 years of research is that informally what they're showing is that the sting of criticism lasts longer than the balm of praise. Multiple studies show that people pay keen attention to negative info. You'll have somebody get through speaking and they'll feel terrible, and 50 people will say, boy, that was great. And one person comes up and says, man, that was horrible. And all you can think about is the negative statement, and that can begin to play on you. In fact, the research shows this, that when asked to remember emotional events in their lives, people remember 4 negatives to every positive in their life. When they look back, they're able to recall far more negatives than they can positives. Now, here's the problem. Most companies and even individuals see growth as the focus on strengthening our weaknesses. Now, there's 2 fallacies of the strengthening our weaknesses idea, which are often espoused by corporations, ineffective leaders, and self-flagellating individuals, people who love to beat themselves, people who love to talk about how bad they are. Here's all the things that are wrong with me. So there's kind of a joy sometimes, you can see this, but the reality is that's not what necessarily brings change. First of all, anyone can learn any skill with enough time. That's one of the fallacies. And that's not true. You can't, everyone can't learn any skill at any time. I won't have time to overdevelop that today, but the second fallacy is that people develop more efficiently when their weaknesses are attacked. So in this research, they showed that number one, this whole idea you can be anything you want to be. Well, that's nice, but I'd like you to tell me how I'm going to be an NBA basketball player as a quadriplegic. Well, Dan, they do have the Paralympics. Well, that's great, but those are people with arms. I don't even have arms, so I can't even play para basketball. Now, I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying that when we're talking about people, a part of our struggle is we tell people you can be anything you want to do. In fact, one of the illustrations that they use in the book that I read nearly 20 years ago is how we love to celebrate the Rudies. Y'all remember Rudy? Went to Notre Dame, big movie made about him, went to Notre Dame, wasn't a very good athlete. And then right toward the end of his career, he made a great play, and it became the inspirational, you can do anything you want to. And so we find ourselves in these situations where we're always trying to prove that we can do something that may be outside of our strengths. I had one of my employees one time, I was getting ready to hire an executive COO next to me, a CEO, and I was interviewing, I was starting the interview process, and one of my other executive leaders came to me and said, Dan, I'd really like to talk to you about that position. And I said, okay, great. I said, tell me what your strengths are. And he told me, and then I said, well, tell me what your weaknesses are. And I said, well, actually what I said was, tell me what you don't think you're great at. And he said, well, I think I can do anything. I can learn anything. And I said, that's exactly why you can't be my COO, because as long as you can think you can do everything, then you're not going to focus on what you do well, and you're not going to elevate those around you. Gallup did a survey of 198,000 employees across various businesses, and they asked this question: do you believe that you can do your best at your job each day? Only 20% said that they believed that they could do their best. In other words, they were not in the place of their strength. They were not in the place of where they brought the greatest value. As a result of the 20% that said that they were operating in their strengths, they were 50% more likely to work in an organization with low employee turnover. They were 38% more likely to be in a more productive business, and they were 44% more likely to work in an organization with high customer service. In other words, when people are operating in their strengths, you have less turnover, you have higher customer satisfaction, and you have a more productive organization. But here's what's interesting. The paradox of the human psychology is that while people remember criticism, they respond to praise. While they remember criticism in the moment, if you want to see positive change, they respond to praise. So let's talk about understanding strengths. Clifton defines, and I don't want to over introduce him, but Clifton was a researcher who became known as the grandfather of positive psychology and the father of strength-focused organization. He's been studying it since the 50s at the University of Nebraska from 1950 to 1969, and then he went on to develop his consulting business. Then he bought Gallup in 1988 and began to use many of their polling tools to be able to do his research. And so they did a survey over 20 years where they interviewed tens of thousands of leaders, CEOs, business owners, successful entrepreneurs, people who had either built or grown successful businesses. Of those tens of thousands of interviews, they drew out 34 strengths that these leaders had. All right. So they just began to talk to them about what they did well, how they saw the world, how they operated, and they determined that there was a list of 34 common characteristics that emerged from these tens of thousands of leaders. What they also noticed is that no leader possessed all 34. I mean, that's virtually impossible. But they did see that they had a collection of, 4 to 6, 3 to 6 of these strengths that they learned to maximize. In other words, they found out what they did well, and that's what they focused on. And so of those, he began to develop this whole strategy around strengths. Now, here's how he defines strengths. And I'm sorry I didn't make a slide out of this because it probably would have been effective. But strength is any activity that you can perform repeatedly and excel in time and time again. Let me say that again. It's any activity that you can perform repeatedly and excel in time and time again. That's a strength. In fact, I would add to that, being the non-researcher I am, but if I were to add my experience to that and working 40 years as a consultant with business owners, is that I would add to that, that they do without thinking. In other words, the strength just flows out of me. One of the things I do appreciate about David is that he's the consummate encourager. I think I don't know where he picked that up. I don't know if he was born that way, or if he saw it in his family or reacted to not having it in his family. We've never talked about it, but you know that David's always seeing the positive side. He's going to sell, you could sell ice to an Eskimo. He just is enthusiastic. Well, one of the things that I think he's learned is that he functions best by being an encourager and not an accountant. He operates in his strength. You see very similarly to Jill. To ask Jill to go in and resolve major conflict within an organization would not be the best use of who she is as an individual. And so it's the idea that whatever you do repeatedly, you excel in it time and time again, and it's effortless. He goes on to explain that strength is an amalgam of talent, knowledge, and skills. Talent is innate. You either have a talent or you don't. You can strengthen that talent. So for instance, I tried to play basketball in junior high. I was an offensive lineman. I tried and tried and tried. I just never had the hand-finger dexterity to really dribble the ball. Now, could I have taught myself? Probably, but I would have always been limited. That the harder I tried, the more frustrated I got and the more I didn't improve. What I did discover is that one of the reasons the coach got me in there is that I was agile and quick and fast, even as a lineman. And so I began to work to become a better lineman, and which I did. I became a starter on a championship team as what they call a pulling guard. Once I realized what my best strength was, without even knowing any of this teaching, I just knew I wanted to be the best at what I did naturally, rather than trying to figure out how to be something that I wasn't. Some of y'all have experienced that in your own life. When Tiger Woods was playing at his premium, he didn't have a great chip shot. When he would go out to practice, he would work on the chip shot, but you know what he worked on every day religiously? His drive. He could drive. He was out driving people when he was in his teens and early 20s. And so every day he made sure he became more and more proficient at what he was best at. And you and I tend to do the opposite, don't we? We spend a whole lot of time trying to improve where we're not great, instead of, and we'll get to this in a minute, how do we deal with our weaknesses? But bottom line is, in knowing our strengths, we can operate in that. Let's go to the next idea. So that's all set up. So how do we maximize our strengths and manage our weaknesses? How do we play that out? Number one, the key to successful growth and leadership is identifying strengths. If you and I are going to reach our maximum, we have to be able to identify our strengths. If you're going to be a great leader of your team, you need to be able to identify your strengths and the strengths of your team. This is extremely important. We'll get into relationships in a minute. As I understand my strength, it allows me to know where I function best, and it allows me to know where to place you so you function best. Then maximizing those strengths through intentionality. So once I know what that strength is in myself or in those that I'm leading, then I'm looking to maximize those strengths. Let me give you a little contrast here. A good leader will utilize team members to accomplish a goal. Now, when I first started leading, I didn't lead very well because I tried to do everything. Well, as I got into my mid and late 20s and I realized, boy, I can't do this by myself, I began to recruit team members to do stuff because I couldn't get it all. I couldn't get to it all. But the reality is that I used those people to accomplish my goal. You see, the difference between a good leader and a great leader is this. A good leader knows they can't do it by themselves and they need other people. But a great leader intentionally identifies other strengths and then strategically places and engages them. He or she knows what the other strengths are and finds a way to place them in those strengths and then to allow them to grow in those strengths. So this requires both self-awareness and the humility to identify and empower someone through strength rather than just using them for utility. See, when I stopped doing it by myself and started getting a team, what I did was I had a list and I would recruit you to do a job. I didn't recruit you to excel in your strengths. I recruited you to get something off my plate. So it didn't matter what your strength was. I just needed you to do blank. I just needed you to do. So for instance, I had a guy on my staff in my early church. Did a church plant back in 1986. And about 3 years in, one of the men coming to the church had a major role at the University Medical Center here in Jackson. In fact, he oversaw an $85 million budget at the University Medical Center. But he was so moved by my preaching and so moved by the ministry the church was doing that he wanted to know if I needed any help on his staff. I said, well, I can't pay you very well, but I would love to have you on. I mean, he was a very close friend. And so he quit his job, which paid quite a bit of money, to go to work for about a third or a quarter of that. Well, I got him in the office and I look back now and I treated him like an office assistant. I had this guy with incredible strengths that I was underutilizing. He ended up leaving, ended up very broken, ended up going back into his field. And we only talked like 2 or 3 times after that in the last 30 years because I used him as a utility rather than investing in him. I remember one day, and I'm going to use another church illustration if you'll forgive me, but I was speaking one day in a place, and while I was sitting on the front row, having just gotten through speaking, I felt this impression in me that I had spent my ministry getting people to the church to fulfill my vision. But my job when I preached was to actually help them find their vision. And I changed as a leader that day, sitting on that front row in Alabama, at this conference I was speaking in. And I said, you know what? I'm going to stop speaking to get people to follow me. And I'm going to start speaking to get people to be everything they were created to be. It changed the way I led. It also changed the way I hired. My largest business contract right now, when I take people in, when I look at hiring them, I actually take them through assessments to make sure I know where their strengths are. I want to know if their strengths will fit on our team. But number 2, I want to know where to put them so we can maximize those strengths. I was actually asked recently by this very large organization with a 9-figure budget if I'd be willing to take over as chief people officer, simply because they're seeing the difference in their teams operating with strengths rather than focusing on weaknesses, which they had been doing. Well, the same is true with relationships. The same is true in our marriages. We can maximize our strengths and minimize our weaknesses. Now, let me take just a minute and talk about marriage. Not everybody on here is married. Some of you may be widowed or widowed, or you may be single or divorced. You may just have never been married. So I don't know where we are, but the majority of us are married or will be married, hoping to be married. And so let me just talk about marriages, and because I could also talk about being a parent, but I'm going to stick on marriage as an illustration. I've done a lot of couples coaching, a lot. I mean, it's in the hundreds. And I don't call it counseling, so I'm not a very good counselor. I'm a coach. I tell me where you want to go, and then I do everything I can to help you get there. And I'm glad to listen to the problems. I'm glad to listen, to what happened and maybe some, deep pain in your life. But my goal is not to just sit and let you rehearse the problems. My goal is for you to become everything you were created to be. And so, having worked with hundreds of couples, in the hundreds, I don't want to say hundreds, but I don't know if it's 150 or 300, but it's been a lot over 40 years. One thing I've seen over and over again when couples come to me, 80% of the time, the relationship has devolved into one or both spouses fixating on the other spouse's weakness. You ever seen that? That they get together and all they can talk about is what the other one's not doing. All they can talk about is where the other one's letting them down. All they can talk about is how they failed. So in almost, I'll tip my hand if I've done a lot of coaching of Primerica couples too, who will call me up after events and say, hey, hey, would you be willing to meet with us? And fortunately, David, I'll have sometimes they'll just call up and say, we're doing pretty good. We just want to do better. Can you help us? And my answer is probably, but we'll have to see. But when they come to me broken, they come to me and they're in lots of pain, they're struggling, the relationship isn't going well. I'll go ahead and tip my card if you ever call. I'll start with this. Tell me why you fell in love with this person. I want you to give me at least 3 reasons. I'm doing marriage pre-counseling as soon as I get through here. I have an appointment with a couple that I'm marrying, and I always require pre-marriage counseling before I marry somebody. And if they don't have time or they don't want to do it, I don't marry them. It irritates me beyond. I'm going to get on my soapbox here a minute. We spend more money on the wedding than we do the marriage, and that just irritates the fool out of me. And so you're going to sit through 8 to 12 sessions with me, and they're going to be grueling and they're going to be hard. And you may not like me when we get through, but I'm going to get you better prepared for marriage. But I'll ask the same thing of these couples. Why are you marrying this person? Why did you marry that person in the first place? Folks, I can't tell you how many couples get mad at me at that question. Well, I don't even remember why I married the idiot. I don't even know why. It's like the son that was taking a social history class and came to his dad one day and said, Dad, is it true that when a man and a woman gets married in Africa, that the man doesn't even know the woman? And he said, son, that's true in every culture. Well, we're kind of like that, aren't we? It's like, okay, do I really know this person? I've come to learn that when women get married, they think their husbands are going to change, and they don't. And the men marry their wives thinking they won't change, and they do. And so we wake up 10 years later and our expectations didn't get fulfilled. We have now focused on their negatives so long that it's all we can think about, to the point that I'll have people mad at me that I ask them, what is your spouse's strengths? But if we want to have a great marriage, we build our spouses by celebrating their strengths. When my wife and I first got married and I was working all the time, and I was leaving at 6 in-the-morning, getting home at 6 at night, and I thought, well, I'll just let her do the checkbook and manage our finances, because she's home. She's smart girls. Tested out her senior year in high school, went to Baylor on a full scholarship, was offered a full master's scholarship paid for. I said, well, she can take care of this. But I found after about 6 months that she was so stressed watching how tight our money was, because we didn't make a lot of money, that it was tearing her down. It was destroying her day. She was having a hard time enjoying waking up in the morning, and then it was making it hard on us. And so I finally said, look, I have a lot of grace to manage the money. Let me take care of that. And so literally when we were about a half a year, maybe a year into our marriage, I just told her, I said, here's the checkbook. Let me know when you write a check. I'll manage the rest of it. And I'll tell you, 37 years later, I probably should have kept that checkbook, but anyway, it's still my responsibility to manage all those finances. Now, on the other side of that, and she has always celebrated that, she'll tell the kids, I'm so grateful your dad takes care of it. Just, she goes, I don't know how it works, but I hand him receipts and somehow they all get paid. Well, here's the other side of that story. Um, I am not a handyman. I am not a handyman. I don't fix things. I remember how terrified I was just changing out the electrical outlets in our house when we bought a fix me up. I was terrified. Just knew I was going to get electrocuted. I was going to look like that cat on the cartoon that stuck his finger in, and everything lit up and you could see his bone structure. And I just did not want to do that. So I've never been that guy to fix stuff. Well, I came home one day and my wife was under the sink, and I heard this bang, 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 bang. And she's under the sink fixing the disposal with a YouTube video playing in her lap where she was following the YouTube. Well, I felt like I had to turn in my man card that day. I thought, oh my goodness, Dan, you idiot, you're such a failure. And so I told her, honey, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that was broken. She goes, no, 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 that's fine. She goes, I enjoy this. And, I enjoy the research of how to fix it. And I enjoy kind of getting it off my list. And it was that day that I became very glad that I married a woman who loved the little trinkety stuff around our house, because I don't do it well. I just am not, you do not want me fixing anything. In fact, I saw a home, what do they call those odds, odd job trucks. And on the side, the moniker of the company was, we repair what your husband fixed. Well, that's me. I don't like it, but my wife loves it. And here's where we have found the strength in our marriage. There are things that can irritate the hound out of her about me and vice versa. It's just personality quirks. And as you know, the older you get, you are either growing into a more cranky couple, or you're growing into a couple that really values the strengths of the other. I would highly encourage you to choose the second one. What does your spouse do well? What do your children do well? What do your friends do well? And celebrate those things. Don't keep knocking people for what they don't do well, but celebrate what they do well and help them find what those functions are. So let's talk quickly. We're going to fly through this. What are some benefits of focusing on your strengths? When you think about the strengths that you have, why would you focus on them? Number one, because it helps you identify your best use. What are you really good at? See, I'm a firefighter. I'm a coach. I'm a problem solver. Hand me the knot in your tennis shoe and let me, well, I can't now, but let me focus on fixing the knot in that shoe. When I go in, I've had organizations call me and they'll want me to come in and start some kind of a program. And my question is always, what problem are we fixing? And they go, well, it's not really a problem. We just think we need this program. And I'll tell them, I know me. I am a problem solver. And what I want to do is help fix a problem. If you don't have a problem, I'm probably not the guy you want. And so my last 6 churches that I've worked with were all in seriously bad shape. I pastored 3 growing churches. And then the last 5 or 6 I've worked with as an outsider, as a consultant. And one of them came to me and wanted to pay me a lot of money just to preach on Sunday mornings until they found a pastor. I turned it down because there were no problems to solve. I said, y'all are too healthy for me. I don't work with that. So the better I know my strengths, the better I know where I fit. Same way in your office. What is your strength? Are you a great organizer? Are you a great motivator? Are you a great communicator? Are you where are your strengths? Number 2, it helps me better elevate those around me as I know their strengths. And by the way, I don't focus on my weaknesses, but I do know what they are. And so it helps me better elevate those around me to function more effectively because that's their strength. Now there's two assessments I do when I hire people. I do the Enneagram Assessment and I do the Cliff's Strengths Assessment. And in the Enneagram, I know my best personalities that work with me. And I know the ones that don't work best, I don't work best with. I know that I need to hire a particular personality that loves detail, because guess who doesn't like detail? Guess who doesn't like Excel sheets? Guess who doesn't like typing Excel sheets? I certainly don't like creating the function in the Excel sheet. So I hire people who love that. Now, I just, because I know them, guess what? They love doing the Excel sheet. So every day that they come in, they get something off my desk that I hate and put something on their desk that they love. As I'm able to elevate those people, we're all happier. I had a secretary in my, every time I'd hire a secretary or a personal assistant, I would always ask them, how do you like lists? How do you like Excel sheets? How do you like putting together detail? How do you like keeping up with expenses? And if they don't say I love it, then I need to either find another place for them or I don't need to hire them. I know what I'm looking for. And so in one of mine, I had a wonderful executive assistant, and one of my executive leaders came in and said, "Hey, I want to talk to Dan about," and he was he was getting ready for a conference that night that I was speaking for his part of the organization. And he said, "I want Dan to come look at the room and tell me what he thinks about it." And I'll never forget Betsy telling him, he doesn't need to check the room. He trusts you. He hired you in this role because he trusted you to do that." And he said, "Well, I really want him I want to make sure it looks the way he wants." She said, "You really don't want to ask him," because here's what she knew. Because I'm a problem solver, if you ask me, "Do you like it?" I can't help but pick it to death. So finally, he got her to let me go in and look at it. And guess what? I went in, I looked at it. It wasn't how I would have set it up. And that's all I said. I said, "Well, I wouldn't have set it up that way, but it's fine." And he said, "Well, how would you like it set up?" And I said, "Well, I mean, if I were doing it, I'd do it this way." So I thought he wanted to learn. Well, guess what happened? We ended up changing the room. It worked a lot better. It would have been fine the other way, but it did work better with me. When I left the organization, his complaint with me was, "You're a micromanager." And I said, "Well, I don't see myself as a micromanager. How do you see that?" That was the only illustration he pointed to. He said, "You remember 2.5 years ago when we were doing that seminar and you came in and you didn't like it and you made us change it because you didn't like it?" I said, "Marty, do you remember Betsy telling you don't ask him? Do you remember Betsy telling you that's not his best use? But if you drag him in there, he's going to have an opinion. So don't drag him in there. Just let him come in." And so I told him that as we were doing the exit interview, as I was exiting, I said, "Well, Marty, if I had known that you were looking for my praise and not my input, I would have done that. But that's not how you asked it. You asked, is this how you would do it?" Now, Dan, why do you tell that story? Because a part of knowing strengths is knowing what the other person is looking for. See, I've learned this about myself. Some of y'all are wonderfully mature. I'm not. I need praise. I need somebody to cheer me on. I'm that husband that when I would take out the garbage, I thought I had cleaned the whole house. And I wanted to be praised for that. And my wife would say, "You never help around the house." I mean, she actually didn't say that, but let me use that as an illustration. She may say, "Well, you never help around the house." And my comment would be, "I took out the garbage last week. Of course I help around the house." And, steam's coming out her ears. And what I'm realizing is this: I'm looking for praise. So I've learned to roll my own. I'll say, "Hey, honey, I took out the trash. It's a great time to tell me I did a great job." She said, "Honey, you did great. I just don't know what this house would look like if you didn't take out the trash every other month. That's just awesome that you help out now." Right. And so I love the fact that as part of knowing strengths is also knowing how to motivate them. And then lastly, by focusing on strengths, in other words, knowing what they are, it helps me build a better team. Now, let me change that middle word from the benefits of focusing on strength to the benefits of maximizing on strengths. So we focus on it to know what they are, but then how do we execute them? Number one, when I focus on those strengths, I'm more effective. In other words, I have greater impact. The idea that when I'm in my strength, I'm going to produce more change. Number two, I'm more efficient. I maximize resources. Now, I'm not going to get on my high horse here, but give me 30 seconds. You have to know the difference between effective and efficient. Effective is doing the right things. Efficient is doing things right. Let me say it again. Effective is doing the right things. Efficient is doing things right. And the problem is some organizations are always working on efficiency and never addressing effectiveness. So they keep managing their resources, but they're not increasing their impact. Effectiveness always has to precede efficiency. Don't get more efficient unless you're getting more effective. So if I'm doing the wrong thing, but I'm getting better and better at doing it, that's not very productive. So when I'm walking in my strengths, I'm more effective. In other words, I'm able to see the big rocks, but I'm also more efficient. Number three, I'm far more fulfilled. I'm more enjoyable. When I'm in my strengths, I'm just easier to be around. So let's move into this. So how do we manage our weaknesses? You see, this does not mean maximizing our strength does not mean ignoring our weaknesses. So give me 5 minutes to fly through this, and then we'll either wrap up or take some questions, David, if somebody has any questions. This does not mean that you don't have to know your weaknesses and even operate in them occasionally or in seasons. Number one, it does mean understanding where to focus my resources. Dan, what do you mean by that? Well, I've already told you I'm no good with accounting. I'm real good with numbers. I have an MBA and I hated my accounting class. Now, I was in the middle of stem cell treatment down in Central America, so I was fighting through all of that while trying to take my class. But I hated accounting. It just didn't make sense to me. I mean, I could repeat the formulas, but I didn't have it in my gut. And I've always been, I just don't like it. Now I understand numbers, I understand budget, I understand cash flow, I understand P&L, all of that makes sense to me. But the accounting side has always been frustrated. And as a result, it makes sense to me to hire somebody to do my accounting. Now follow me here on this. It's better money spent for me to hire an accountant than spending 6 hours doing something that it may only cost me $500 to hire someone to do. And in that 6 hours that I'm spending $500, I could be producing because I'm a producer. I'm a rainmaker. I like getting the stuff going. I like solving the problems of the organization. And guess what? When I'm out with companies and they're paying me $2,500 to $4,000 for a half day, why in the world would I waste that morning trying to save $500 if I could spend $500 and make $2,500? I'm leaving, excuse me just a second. David, I just hit my 45 minutes. Do you want me to finish up?
Yeah. Go ahead and wrap up. Yeah.
Okay. So I hire a lady to do my accounting, and at the end of the year, she always reconciles my bank account. She always goes over all, and then I pay my CPA lots of money. In my mind, to him, it's not a lot of money, but in my mind, I'm spending money in order to protect my weaknesses. Okay. And so I understand where to focus my resources. Now, for instance, one of my strengths is generosity. The first time my accountant reconciled my books at the end of the year, she sent me a bill that it only took her 3 hours because I have a great system in place with my assistant. It only took her 3 hours and she only charged me like $20 an hour. So she sent me a $60 bill. And I wrote her back and I said, Bobby, you're way worth more than that to me. I said, does $250 sound okay? Would you redo your invoice? And she said, well, I just, I charge $20 an hour. I said, no, the value to me is much more than that. So can I pay you $250? Well, guess who I've had doing my reconciliation ever since then? I operated in my strength, which was rainmaking and generosity. And I have a very loyal accountant now that anytime I write, she says, what do you need? Because she knows that I value her strength as well. So before being able to afford the accounting help, I had to carve out time and learn to get it done. So I did accounting early until I could afford it. So I have in my business plan a certain amount of income that I'm going to hire a bookkeeper. So as you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, then you go, you know what, I may have to do all my accounting and taxes because I'm not making enough money. But once I start making money, I'm going to start setting aside so much per month, so much per quarter, so much per year to let someone else do what I don't do well. Now, the second thing I would say is that focusing on my weakness doesn't give me a right to be ignorant about things that I should know. I need to be able to read a P&L sheet. I need to be able to understand cash flow, cost of doing business, etc. But I need to strengthen enough to be proficient. There's three options. I can be proficient enough to get it done. I can create workarounds like good accountability systems like I have, or you can create support systems. So when you're hiring, even within your company, knowing what you're good at, how many of you know that David would never have gotten this far without Rose? Doesn't matter how you feel about Rose. I can tell you I've known her since the late 80s, and she's been David's bulldog. Now, does she get everything right? No, but I can't tell you how many times I've written David 20 years ago, 25 years ago, David, I need such and such. And she'll write back, Rose, take care of this. And the more I got to know David's strengths and weaknesses, I didn't want him taking care of it. I wanted Rose taking care of it. I've been around him enough to know that he understood early on. He was already building his support system. He was spending money to free him up to make money. Now, you can't spend money you don't have. David and Jill did all of it for a while, but in their business plan was a need to hire people to do the stuff that they didn't do well. Since I'm running late, I'm just going to wrap up with this quote. Tom Rath was one of the researchers. In fact, he was head of Gallup research at the same time Clifton was there. He says, you can't do anything you want, but you can be a whole lot more of who you already are. You can't be anything you want, but you can be a whole lot more of who you already are. So I'll end here. If you're interested in this kind of digging deeper, all right, this is not, I know this has been a heavy slodge through the mud, march through concrete kind of morning for me. It's not my typical style, but this is what Dave and I agreed would be helpful for y'all. You could go take your own Strength Finders test. David and Jill took theirs this week. I took my second one. I took one 15 years ago, back in 2007, right when Strength Finders 2.0 came out, which was written by Tom Rath. And then Clifton Gallup created this consulting thing. And if you want to go and take the assessment, just go to gallup.com/Clifton Strengths. And for $50, you can take that same test. So David, I think David and Jill are going to speak a little bit more about it later, but I have hit my 45 minutes plus. So David, I'm going to kick it back to you and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, well, Dan, yeah, ma'am. Hey, look, thank you so much. And, actually, actually, Dan, I guess it was probably about 6 weeks ago. Maybe it was on a Sunday morning service. You actually mentioned the Gallup Strength Finders, and now it's called Clifton Strengths. They've rebranded, but it's part of Gallup. And so anyway, it just kind of piqued my curiosity. And then I checked it out, Dan, and I've talked more about it. And I tell you, I did it this week. Jill and I both took the test, and it has maybe a little over 100 questions or whatever. And then whether you strongly agree or you're kind of neutral on things and all this. And it gives you like 20 seconds to answer each question. And, so you rattle through it. I mean, 30 minutes, once you register, 30 minutes, then you're done. And Dan, I don't know if you want to make any comments about that.
Yeah, well, I would just say a couple of things real quick if you go take it. Number one, you really need to carve out 45 minutes to an hour. If you do the math, which I'm not going to bother David with having to do math in his head, but at 20 seconds, that's about 60 minutes. If you take 20 seconds on every question, it's 177 questions. And so, but the point is at 21 seconds, that question disappears and they send you the next one. And they don't even count it. So unfortunately, if you don't answer it in time, something that may have played into your assessment matters. So I ran out of time twice because they created two that were just identical to me. I was both of them. And I thought, well, where do I go? But if you choose neutral, they throw it out too. So you have to choose one or the other. So look at it, go by your gut. You need to be in a quiet place. Don't be doing this, with other things going on around you. But to maximize it, be focused, carve out the time, and then focus in on it and make sure you move in a timely way.
Yeah, and what's really cool. So anyway, so I did it. Here's my assessment, and then so they rank you based on the 34. What would you call them? Characteristics or leadership?
They call them themes, but for our discussion, the strengths.
Strengths. So anyway,
so what was your top four?
My top, they rank you, give you your top 10, but my top 5 are emphasize strategic, number 1, futuristic, achiever, activator, maximizer. Right. Okay. And so anyway, and it's just amazing. So then they break down each one and say, okay, how you can thrive with this strategic, and then why your strategic is unique, okay, and then why you succeed using it. Then take action to maximize your potential, okay, and then watch out for your blind spots. So it gives you your blind spots, and then like they've been sending me one of my top 5 every day since I took it. Goes into even more detail. but guys, I was thinking about this morning. I mean, to be able to do this and for $50, right? I mean, to me, that is a no-brainer to be able to do that. I think Jill's going to share a little bit more when she shares after Daniel here in a minute. But man, to me, I almost feel like I thought of it this morning. It's kind of, to me, these are kind of, what are your giftings? What are you kind of, your strengths? What are your giftings and the things that kind of can flow through you? You know what I mean? And and how to best use those giftings or strengths in your life. So anyway, Dan, thank you so much for that, for turning me on to it. But it's very affirming, right? That you say, oh man, that's why I am like I am. So it's very affirming that yeah, man, let's step on the gas more, right? Or let's pull back here or just there. You got any comments on that, Dan?
I don't. I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah. So let me make sure there's no questions. Okay. So we've got people just thumbs up. some of the comments and
Yeah, thank y'all. Y'all are very gracious. Thank
they're
you.
they're gonna take it. So Dan, we're gonna move on. And so I appreciate so much you being able to share with us this morning. So hopefully folks can use that. And it was, I didn't feel like you were wading through concrete. Okay. I mean, to me, I love the things like this that help us get better, right? And improve. And so to me, it's very interesting. So Daniel Crillo, are you, I think you're in the house, Daniel?
Hey, what's happening, David? What's going on?
Let's see, let's see. I'm not showing you on the, hang on a second.
So you spotlight me.
Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah.
Hey, David, real quick, somebody just asked a question. Where do they go to take the test? That was on that last slide. If you'll type in Strength Finders or Clifton Strengths, it will take you to it's gallup.com/Clifton Strengths. So,
Yeah.
and David usually sends out the PowerPoint. So if you still can't find it, look for it when the PowerPoint comes out.
Yeah, and by the way, today is recorded, so we're going to send this out to every RVP in the hierarchy next week. So you'll be able to go back and review just some of the notes that Dan, so many good little one-liners in there, Dan. That was great. So, but appreciate that. Daniel, hey man, I know you've had a busy day today already. You can kind of tell us what you've been doing, but just coming up on the convention, I started off talking about Atlanta 2022, what it's going to mean to us. And so I appreciate you being able to share just whatever you want to, whatever your team needs to hear is the same thing we all need to hear. Right.
That's awesome.
So, but we appreciate you. I've already kind of introduced you at the beginning about you and Sandra and how when you came on with us, y'all were dating, right? I remember that before your family started. And but man, what great things that you and Sandra are building together and your team, the leadership that you're going to be. And you're headed there quick. One of the next ones in our hierarchy, a 7-figure builder, right? Not just an earner, a builder. And you're raising up leaders, and that's what you've always done. That's what you've focused. I talked to Daniel this week. He said, "Man, yeah, David, I've just recruited 5 new people." I believe he said 5 new people, and he's a builder. And that's recruit, train, motivate. That's the way we did it. And so anyway, Daniel, I'll turn it over to you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much. And I just actually in the month end, I got my 6th direct for the month. So I actually finished off with 6. If everybody could do me a favor, if everybody could just get up, if you can, and you're able to, and just stretch. We need, like the 7th inning stretch. Anybody who's on video, we need a 7th inning, a good get up. You guys been sitting on that butt too long. We need to get up and stretch it. Okay. So it feels good to stretch, right, guys? Everybody, if you're in the car, you should not be getting up. Okay. So just don't. But listen, we had a busy morning this morning. We actually have a course that's upstairs right now, and we had a conflict. So I booked a training, and then they booked the course. So I sent the course downstairs for 2 hours. I did it upstairs, and then now we switched. So we're busy. But I guess David kind of talked to me a little bit about, touch upon the importance of Atlanta and what it means to you. And I got to tell you something, 21 years later, there's no other better feeling than knowing that you're building and constructing, your own house. And that reminds me of that story of that builder where you had this old carpenter. He's a skilled carpenter. And that story of, every time he built a house, he built it with perfection. He put his heart and soul into this home. And, he built his last house before his retirement. And then his boss comes up to him, and he was like, he had plans for retirement, what he was going to do. And all of a sudden his boss comes up to him, he says, "Hey, listen, Joe," of course it's Joe, he's Italian. "Hey, listen, Joe, we need you to build one more house. I know you retired. I know you got plans, but we just need one more house from you. Could you do it? And he's like, oh, fine. So he builds his last house, but he doesn't do it with the same passion. He doesn't do it with the same commitment. You know, you can see the work is not shoddy, but it's not the perfection that Joe has usually built over the last 35 plus years. Joe built 35 perfect homes over 35 perfect years. So all of a sudden, the end of it, he finishes quicker, does it faster, cuts corners, finishes, done. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the best. And so his owner comes up to him and says, hey, Joe, I just want to say thank you so much for your time, for all the years of service. I want to give you the keys to that last house. That's my gift to you for all the years of service. Now, you should have seen Joe's face. If Joe only knew he was building in his own house, what do you think he would have done? Do you think he would have put a little bit more effort and time? Do you think he would be enthusiastic every time he showed up? Oh, yeah. See, a lot of times we don't understand is that if you're not excited about something, you're not moving towards something, then you're not growing, you're dying. I want to use a different word from dying, but more so is you are retracting from where you want to be. You're either moving forward or moving behind. There's no such thing as stagnating. Water never stays in the pail. It evaporates and it's gone. Water only moves in the river. You got to keep going. And when you come to Atlanta, I got to tell you, I've been in this business for 21 years. I went RVP pretty fast. It took me a long time. Wrote my exam 14 times. I passed that after eventually, then got my license, became an RVP in 6 months, opened my own office. 5 months later, got the ring just before 23 years old, $250,000 to 25. But that beginning, it was Atlanta that helped me. Because I remember moved our business. We started with one van. And I just filled up everybody I could possibly fill up in one van. You know, picture across the border, you know, think about, illegal immigrants coming into the country and you have 24 people coming out of a van. That's kind of how it looked for my first convention. Okay. And it was amazing. Then we only the stories I could only tell you about that van. And we made it. We crossed the border and we made it. We made it to Atlanta. And we had all these people in one van, slept in one room and one hotel. You know how hotels have like 5-star? Okay, then there's a 4-star. We couldn't afford that. Then there's a 3-star. Oh, that's outside of the city. Then there's a 2-star. You're like, I don't know, 1-star? Nah, we don't want to do that. Listen, not even Airbnb could find you a bad place the way we stayed. We stayed at the place, the cockroaches was saying, hey man, what are you doing here? Like it was one of those places. And we're scrubbing our quarters together and we didn't have enough money to go to restaurants. We didn't go to eat at a restaurant, not one restaurant. You know, we looked at all these people who are fancy schmancy eating at the restaurants called Hooters. And we're like, hey, I can't afford that stuff. That's expensive chicken wings. And I'm like, we were like going to the grocery store. we're putting our things together, eating salami. It was really funny. And I'm thinking to myself, that was the best convention I ever had. That was the best convention I ever had. Because I thought to myself, you know, lions only hunt when they're hungry. You put a full belly in a lion, guess what the lion does? Starts sleeping, baby. The problem with many people in Primerica after so many years is they become complacent. Complacent to the point where they're saying, you know what? I'm doing better than where I used to. I don't really need to go to Atlanta. I already know how it is. I've been there. I've done that. Or why do I need to go and clap? I'm not getting any recognition. It's going to be a lot of walking. I got arthritis in my right knee. What do I got to go for that? Listen, just like Chris Rock says, bring Robitussin. It'll fix everything. Okay. So you just got to do whatever you got to do to get there. I don't care if you got to bring some extra Tylenol and aspirin for the walking. You do it. Because your kids and people on your team are watching you. They don't do what you tell them to do. They do what you do. That's really important. So we went from one van. Then we went to the next convention, we went to 3 vans. And we would have salami fights along the way, van to van. Then we went a fleet of vans. Like it was like, I think we rented a Hertz fleet of vans. And we got a discount because he said you could only stay in the province. I'm like, yep, we're staying in the province. I'm like, yeah, see ya, we're going to Atlanta. Don't do that. Then we went from a fleet of vans to a bus. Then we went from one bus to 3 buses and cars that were following us. No air conditioning on one bus. It was hot. Washroom broke down. Not good. It happens. Then, now today, we're like driving, flying, busing, hitchhike. No, don't hitchhike. We do everything now. However you got to get there, we get there. Whatever works for you economically, do it. Whatever works for your team, do it. Just because, some people are going to fly, that doesn't mean it's below you to drive. If that's the best way to go for you and your team. So don't diminish other people's way of doing it. I remember, because I did it all. I'm going to tell you, I had to think about this. I remember Mike Evans gives me goosebumps as I read this. I remember at a convention, Mike Evans, $1 million earner, said, remember the Matrix speech he did? David, I don't know if you remember that. And Mike Evans is doing this, and he's doing the Matrix talk. And he says, I told my mom I'm going to be the one. And then my mom came up to me and says, hey, Mike, are you the one? Or we're going to have to find another one. Whoa! The whole 50,000 people erupted. You should have seen. Does anybody remember that moment? Anybody ever heard that talk? Whoa, gives me goosebumps. Look at this. I'm Italian. I got hairy arms. Got goosebumps. I'm telling you right now, you can't get that. I can't sell you that feeling of what it just gave me. It doesn't matter what you say. I can't give it to you. You have to be there. See, that feeling is something special that moved me. I remember the tear in my eye after hearing that, because I remember my mom, who was healthy at the time, and she just wanted the best for me. She loved me. She was the most selfless person I ever met in my life. Then she got Alzheimer's. Thank God I busted my butt to be in a position where I could go there every single day and meet with my mom, have the best personal care. We had caregivers day, night, weekends, everything. Cost $9,000 a month to maintain my mother with good care. You think my volunteered effort would do that? It takes cheddar, peeper. Money. That's what it takes. And if I didn't go hustle, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I was the one that was able to help my mom. Now, unfortunately, she passed away last year, Alzheimer's and COVID, but I paid my own mom's death claim. I was the one that supported my family. I was the one that went after it to be there. You know what? It makes a difference to make a difference in people's life, doesn't it? Every small contribution. I just ordered, just 5 minutes before I came on, I just ordered pizza for the people on the course upstairs. They have no association with me. I ordered party-sized pizzas for all of them. I gave the guy a $40 tip. The guy almost cried right now. You could change your life if you get into a better position, or you could keep counting your quarters. I remember Jimmy Myers' talks. That was probably the most motivational talk that I remember Jimmy Myers giving as well. Talking about one day being that person that you could be proud of yourself, look in the mirror that you've done it, that you help everybody you possibly can. You could be in a position that when someone knocks on your door, you could deliver. That meant something to me when Jimmy Myers said that at a convention. I remember David and Jill Landrum's hierarchy breakout sessions. I remember the brown cheesy sweater that I wore to the first breakout. And I thought it was cool. I was the most cheesy wearing professional dress person you'll ever meet. And I remember coming to those meetings and I was like, wow, look how charismatic these people are. They're so good looking. You know, I felt like David Landrum was out of a newspaper. This guy, he was a magazine article model, this guy. And he would just walk into a room and he just said these words and it just moved my emotion. And when you're emotionally connected to something, guess what happens? It means something more to you when you're emotionally connected. If you're not emotionally connected to something, how do you create the movement? You can't do it unless you're there. And I committed myself, I would come back from that convention and go tear it up. And I got this little trophy from David, which I still have today. Actually, I think that's it. One second. Hold on. No, it's not. Yes, it is. This is the first trophy I ever got at a convention. How funny. It happened to be in my office. And it says, Landrum International. Boom, right there. And I got this little trophy. And I'm like, dang, I could get a trophy. Now, listen, we all know this costs $1.45 from China if we ship it. I get it. But you know what this meant to me? I still have it. I still have it. You know why? Because recognition means so much when you work for something. Do you ever want to fight for something and get recognized? Does it mean something to you? I remember that. I remember the first pick I took with Mike Landrum. And he looked at me, put his hand on my shoulder, covered my whole from shoulder braid to here. His hand. It was like a monster. He puts his hand on me. He goes, "You could do this, kid." Just a word like that, just words like that moved me. I remember that. I remember doing a talent show. Any of you guys remember that? Were you a part of that? Were you a part of that? No? Were you a part of that talent show? We used to do talent shows back in the day in Atlanta, in the Square Park, and we would make up our own talents and we would present the talents to our team. And then other people from Primerica would want to be a part of the talent show. I remember doing that. And that was so much fun. I remember that. I remember the team talks late at night. I remember walking by and seeing a person who does really well in Primerica and our team huddling around it and listening to those conversations and getting gold from that. I remember that. I remember all those talks. I remember the first time somebody asked me, can I get you to sign my book? I remember having no ring, saying one day I will have a ring on my finger to sign a book. I remember that too. I remember the feeling. I remember the feeling of when on the way back from Atlanta, some of my people quit their jobs on the way back. They got on the phone, they quit their job. Do you know how cool that was? I remember people coming full-time, quitting to come full-time, and people running to go RVP. Now, 21 years later, we got 17 RVPs. We got 8 locations. We're closing in on 350 licensed reps very shortly. Rolling 12, 700K plus. And I worked at a grocery store and got fired for eating an olive. Ain't that something? Where does the motivation come from? The motivation comes from other sources. Yes, it comes internally, that's inside of us, but we got to use external forces to take it out of us sometimes. And what Atlanta does, it's almost like, why do people go to church? Because it's the spiritual awakening that's taken out of our pastor, our priest, and all that stuff, the environment. It's the same feeling. When you go to Atlanta, it's basically the external motivating factors that come from all of these talks and that talk and this event and this team camaraderie and whatever. One person says one encouraging word, and all these external forces come together. And what it does is it pulls all of that realness that's inside of you and pulls it out. Then all of a sudden you come back and you're working different, thinking different, more excited, making more money, attracting more people. Your level of energy is higher. Your magnetism is higher. Everywhere where you walk, everybody wants to be around you. Why? Because you learn how to use your power. Sometimes you don't know how to use it. But even if you do know how to use it, put some freaking gasoline on the fire, baby. That's what Atlanta's all about. I tell my people this all the time. I'm going to leave you at this. For 21 years, we just had about 10 people register about today online at home, which was cool. But we should have a lot more. I always tell my people it's like a money back guarantee. It really is. But on one condition. I tell my people, I say, if you go to Atlanta and you spend the money and you don't have fun, but if I see one smile on your face, you get no money back. So you better be frowning the whole time if you want your money back. Let me tell you, in 21 years, I didn't have to refund one person. And I've been saying this for 21 years. You know why people go buy these crap products and they, y'all 30-day money back guarantee. That's why people get schooled into buying this crap, right? I give the money back guarantee for Atlanta, but on one condition, you're not allowed to smile because that means you're enjoying it. And everybody comes back. Thank you, Daniel. I'm so glad I came. Changed my life. And guess what? Their personal life, their business life, everything gets better because of it. I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, this event will do something that you do not have personal control over. It will pull out something out of you that I promise you're going to be more valuable as a human being because of it. And now you're going to be able to use this extra power that's used by external forces pulled out of you to make the world a better place, to make other people's lives better because you understand this power and you've highlighted this power and people recognize this power and they're magnetized to this power, all because you came to Atlanta? Hell yes, that's why. Ladies and gentlemen, I pray that you see and feel what I feel, but you can never, my dad always used to say to me, grade 5 education, multimillionaire. My dad says, you'll never know someone's situation until you walk in their own shoes. Ladies and gentlemen, you're probably thinking, is this guy on something right now? Yeah, I'm on high in life right now. I'll tell you that right now. Because you know why? I'm reminiscent about Atlanta. I'm getting fired up. You see nothing yet. And if you want to walk in my shoes, if you want to feel what I feel, I'm going to see every single one of you in Atlanta. Daniel, I have kids. I have kids too. See you in Atlanta. Figure it out. Daniel, I have work. Well, your work doesn't care whether you show up or not. So it's either A, you do something about it, schedule a vacation during that period of time, or make more money so that you can quit your job and you can actually do this full time. And if they're going to quit, if they're going to fire you because you missed a couple of days, then your job wasn't too valuable anyway. So let me, the news press here, your job ain't shit. So go find another job. Listen, I say it how it is. You could do the Hail Marys for me after I swore today, but I love you just the same. And I'll give you my shirt off my back when I see you. Let's go rock and roll. I want to see everybody in Atlanta. And I know Aina Jibison is online right now. She's one of my sisters from another mister. And she's probably praying for me right now, but she's known me from the bottom to the top. And she knows this is how I am. She knows I'm the real deal. And my heart's in the right place. Right, Aina? You know this, girl. So I pray for all of you. I love you all. I want to see you all in Atlanta. And I want to take a selfie with you because you're the star of the show when you come to Atlanta. Thank you, David. I appreciate you.
Hey, man. Hey, buddy. Wow, that's incredible. And no, we know, thinking about, I think back, I almost feel like you're kind of a son. I just kind of felt like I've kind of watched you grow up, thinking about going and getting fired for eating an olive at a grocery store. And now looking at the leadership team that you and Sandra are building. So it's incredible. And I love that you still got the trophy that I invested all that money in. And, I got my first recognition that Art Williams ever gave me, got it in a frame now, my t-shirt, proven leader. But yeah, those things mean something, probably didn't cost. I mean, I think somebody probably gave Art this shirt. It's so ugly, right? That's a proven leader, but man, it means everything. And here it is 43 years later, I'm still hanging on to it. And so, hey, we're going to have that hierarchy breakout, man, on Thursday night. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be like a homecoming. It's going to, before we go into the dome the next morning, we're going to be in that hierarchy breakout. We're going to have recognition and all that. So give away some more our recognition will be better than what you got, Daniel. That little trophy, but anyway, brother, we love you, man. I appreciate you jumping on this morning. So, we've got, I'm bringing Jill up right now. She's got an incredible message. So here she is. Come on, babe.
Okay, I've got to pull this chair up a little bit. How's everybody doing this morning? I'm happy to have just a few minutes, really just 2 or 3 things I wanted to cover with everybody. I want to start by thanking Daniel. Oh my gosh. What a great gift, what a great communicator he is. I'm not sure where his Clifton strengths fall, but communication and enthusiasm and inspiring other people has definitely got to be up there. And I so appreciate Dan for so many reasons, man. Just so thankful for him and his message, and just excited to get to come alongside each other in life. And thank you. Great job, Daniel. Great job. I want to real quick too, just thank Tommy and Craig. They've been handling our training every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock and doing it every week and doing a great job, and how much we appreciate that. But I want to talk to you, first of all, just about the importance of getting your partner to convention. And, this is something obviously that's near and dear to my heart. And I just wanted to kind of take you back in time for just a minute to think about this. It's 1979, and David had gone to work with Art and A.L. Williams. And he told me, he said, I've won this trip. They're having a convention at Sea Island, Georgia, and I've won this trip. They're going to pay our way. And, I was working at a bank in a job that I absolutely hated. I had no vacation time. I had no sick days left, and I wouldn't even ask for time off. I mean, David ended up calling the president of the bank to get them to give me a few days off. And all I was really spending my time doing was trying to figure out how to get David out of A.L. Williams and get him through college and move to Dallas, Texas to go to work, because my dad had lined up a good job for him in Dallas with security and benefits and all those things that matter, right? And y'all have all heard this story before, but I'd attended the builder school and Art was there, and I was not impressed. And, I tell everybody I kind of smelled a rat, and I didn't want to go. I did not want to go to Sea Island, Georgia. We were all riding with a guy. The guy's name was John. And this was back when cars were a half a block long. Okay. Probably the back seat had 200 square feet in it. There are going to be 6 adults driving 10 hours to Sea Island, Georgia. And I think everybody in the car smoked, including David and Jill. Okay. So just picture this: 10 hours, 6 adults in this car, and we're going off to Sea Island, Georgia to this amazing event, right? And as a side note, it's interesting. I just was thinking about the other day, that first convention versus what I just did, a trip to Hawaii. And I don't know if it's because David and I qualified for Circle of Champions, but they flew us, and it's the first time I've ever flown in a pod, where you have your own pod, like 6 feet, like arm room, leg room, lays down to a bed, got a pillow, got a comforter. And, I've flown private. I mean, I've had a lot of experience now in my life flying around, but I was trying so hard to be cool about it. But I was so excited. I had my phone out. I was making all these videos. I was like, this is unbelievable. And, I was kind of excited to know I can still get excited about something like that. 62 years old. And I'm like, David, I was looking across because we couldn't even really talk to each other. He was over on the other side of a wall. Anyway, just a great experience. And I just thought, the company booked it. I'm not even sure how we ended up with those seats, but how awesome. But on the last day in Sea Island, y'all know the story, was the partnership meeting that I went to. And, my mind shifted. And ultimately, our world shifted from that meeting. I'm not sure we'd still be here, which means I'm not sure any of you guys would be here. Some of y'all probably would have found Primerica, independently. I'm sure that would have happened, but a lot of us maybe wouldn't have. I'm not even sure. I told David that. I said, I'm not sure we would have made it in Primerica or otherwise, but I went there a skeptic, and I came home a crusader. I came home committed. I came home different. And, God just used it in such a mighty way. And I think sometimes we forget, you get in that environment, you hear that thing you needed to hear. You see that thing you needed to see, and it touches your heart. And if you're going to try to do that at home on your sofa watching Netflix, it's just not going to happen, right? We came home, we both quit our jobs. David dropped out of college. He still got like 9 hours left getting his degree, right? But we locked arms and we went to work. Now, this is what I need you to think about. This is what I need you to hear. This is what I believe from the bottom of my toes, bottom of my feet, right? Is that whenever there's growth, fruit, and good things coming, there will be opposition. You just need to you can take that to the bank and borrow money on it. If you've got good things coming in life, you're going to have opposition. You're going to have forces that come against you. I'm not really sure why that is. I just know in all these years of building here, this is how it works. Number one, it won't be easy getting there. I love the fact that Daniel talked about the van and the rubbing the quarters together and the salami or whatever. Hopefully that won't be your experience, but distractions are going to happen. Excuses, you've always got them. Murphy's going to show up. You know, y'all know, how many of y'all know there's this thing called Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? We don't like to talk about that in all of our positive, encouraging coaching sessions, but you know, you're going to have obstacles. You're going to have things that happen. There's a 99% chance you and your partner will have an argument on the way there. I don't know why. And it's going to be over something so stupid. When Dave and I argue on the way to the meeting, I've learned to say to myself, man, there must be something good going to happen here. There's something I need to hear, you know? It's going to appear easier and even seem like you're going to be operating in wisdom to stay home. I just want to tell you, don't do it. You know, fight your way through and get there. You're going to be sitting there. You're going to get a nugget. You're going to be sitting there. You're going to hear that thing you needed to hear. You're going to, you know, maybe make that commitment you needed to make. But just do whatever you got to do to get to Atlanta. I mean, he talked about that. I was going to talk about it a little bit more. But when you get there, immerse yourself in it. Just immerse yourself in it. You know, Mike always talks about the meeting. His game-changing meeting was a leadership meeting in Dallas, Texas. He said, and Amy was not with him. But I remember he called Amy and said, the guy that came to Atlanta is not the guy coming home. I'm coming home different, right? And I know that meeting, I came home differently. And I'm so thankful that David and I have been able to build this company together side by side all these years. The second thing is really the hierarchy breakout, because I think this is just as important as convention. You know, David and I spent some time last week with Mike and Amy and just talked about this. You know, this is something that does make it personal. David says it's like a family reunion. You know, it has been 3 years since we've done this. I read this, I saw this the other day, it said the strength of the team is each individual member, and the strength, I'm sorry, I can't talk, of each member is the team. You know, we need each other. God wired us for that. And I just want to talk a minute too about strength finders. Oh my gosh. I know that this relates to businesses and team and leadership, but I immediately, because I guess how I'm wired, I thought about partnership. You know, how we work. And I already knew Dave and I were going to be opposites. I mean, I absolutely knew it. And it confirmed what I know after almost 44 years of marriage, right? And you've heard me say opposites attract. Why? Because they create balance. It's something we learn in like 7th grade science, right? But most relationships are a balance of combining the biggest aspects of two personalities to make one stronger unit. And I believe in your partnership, if you will really work on finding these are my strengths. These are the things I do that give me life. And then, you know, these are the things that you're good at. These are the things we're both maybe not good at. And we need to outsource those things, right? Looking for those weaknesses. I mean, when you take this and apply it to partnership, it's exponential. You know, it's really common to hear people say that I marry my complete opposite, but I know that David's strengths level out my weaknesses and vice versa. And I've learned to think of it instead of opposites. You know, you can think of it as complementary, right? David, listen, here, I want to give y'all just talk in the detail just for a second, using David and I for as an example, because we just took it this week, but you heard his top 5. Strategic, futuristic, achiever, activator, maximizer. So I put that against my list. Y'all know where they are on my list, number 23, 24, 25, 26, and 29. They're like at the bottom. There's only 34 of them, right? I'm thinking, wow. So then I thought, well, what is his least? What does he operate in the very least? And it was adaptability, which is just the ability to like flex and, you know, which I would kind of think David had that, but you know what? It's in my top 10. Adaptability. And then I look down at my strengths, and all my 7 out of 9 of my strengths all have to do with relationship. They all have to do with relationship with people. Number one is developer, which I wasn't even sure what a developer was. I'm thinking developer until I read it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. It's basically somebody comes alongside of you, believes in you, encourages you, sees the best in you. I mean, what I've done for Dave, what I've done for our team all these years, includer, input, connectedness, communication, what I'm doing right now. And they were on David's list. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see. They were number 29, 28, 21, number 8, and number 14. So the thing we have most in common is this thing called connectedness. Okay, so I looked at connectedness. David's number 8, my number 4. You consider people. This is huge to me. When I think about our hierarchy and our team and you guys out there, you consider people more important than things. Man, you know, I see people come in here and I know it's not, you know, y'all heard me tell the stories about my first goal was to have a closet so big you had to have a shuttle bus to get through it, right? End of the red blouses coming up on the left. I mean, you know, there were several aisles of just shoes in this imaginary closet that I had, right? I understand that. I understand goals and dreams. But at the end of the day, the valuable thing here is pouring into people. It's finding somebody, believing in them, coming alongside of, and then you watch them. I'm convinced it's why Jenny Carter in her 90s was excited, because she was still pouring into people. She still was making a difference, y'all. She had a perspective. She could look back over her shoulder and say, guys, let me tell you why you need to be excited. Let me tell you why you need to stay focused. Let me tell you what your future can be. Let me tell you what to watch out for. You know, that gift of experience speaking, and it filled her life. I mean, she lived, it is really just pouring into people. And David and I share that. That's our only commonality that I could find in our strengths and weaknesses. And I thought how great it is that God wired us that way. You know, and I know we've got to just keep the main thing, what we do at the kitchen table and what we do with our team. It's not about the car or the house or the big closet, right? Amy says all the time, or I used to hear her say this all the time, we have to play the numbers. We're in a numbers business, but people aren't numbers. And we always have to remember that. And I feel like our team's done a great job of doing that through the years. You know, what lit up Art and Angela? I mean, he was out to change an industry. There's no doubt. Art was motivated by righting a wrong. There's no doubt. But man, let me just tell you something from personal experience. They poured into people. And I think about that first meeting I told y'all in Hawaii, the first time I went to Hawaii, and they've flown us to Hawaii. We're there for it seems like we were there for a week. It was probably just a few days. And they had an optional family and marriage workshop. And it was a James Dobson film. David and I went, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning to this optional workshop. It was a James Dobson film that we left there emotional. Turn your heart toward home. David and I were just in Hawaii, back in Hawaii, and we drove. We didn't have a lot of time. You know what we did? We went and found that Hyatt. It was a Hyatt in Maui, Hyatt Regency. We found it and we went and found the area where the meeting room was, just to walk down that memory lane. Y'all, they poured into us. They had family and marriage resources. That's why a guy like Dan to me is important. And I've been talking to Dan about, you know, he's so good at counseling people through conflicts. And let's face it, if you've been married 5 minutes, okay, maybe let's give it 5 months. If you've been married 5 months, you're going to have a conflict, right? And he's brilliant at helping navigate that. He's navigated David and I through some very treacherous waters, but man, what a beautiful thing, what a gift he has. And he told me he's committed to maybe doing a marriage workshop, like not on a Saturday morning, something completely optional, but like maybe a Monday evening that's maybe several parts long where couples could get in. It could be interactive and you can ask questions. But see, I love that. I love that because the foundation of your business, if you win and you accomplish everything in business, but you lose the treasures that mean the most to you, if you forfeit that, you know, Art Williams said over and over again, a lousy personal life, a lousy family life will eventually make a lousy business life. And I had a conversation yesterday with our oldest granddaughter about just the value of family. And it was, anyway, I thought it was brilliant. I told David all the things that I said. And it was just kind of one of those moments, those teaching moments where she was listening and asking questions and stuff. But anyway, I remember in the early days here, you know, I think about this vehicle and I think about going to Atlanta and the importance of all of us getting together. And, you know, David was motivated by freedom to be his own boss, I think freedom was just really huge for David. David hated the idea of going to work for somebody else because he had done it already. He'd already had like 12 jobs. Okay. He was young, but he'd already worked enough jobs to go, man, there is not a good job out there, right? He wanted to work at something he believed in. He loved this idea of building a company within a company. And he liked the idea of helping people, and he wanted to earn an income. And I think all those need to be in place for you. But, you know, I think a lot of people are at a fork in the road, you know, that you can either use today to build the life you want, and you can use today to build the life you want, or you can do what I see a lot of people doing. You can today instead just try to escape the life that you've created. You know, you can try to escape where you are, or you can apply yourself and look at the strengths that you have, the strength your partner has, your team has, and figure out how you're going to move forward to best build a great life, one you don't want to escape from. It's an exciting journey to come alongside people and help make that happen. And I saw this servant leadership is not about being in charge or being the big wheel. It's about taking care of those in your charge. So I hope to see you in Atlanta. I think it's going to be spectacular. And I'm going to turn it back over to David to close.
Hey, Jill, that's great. And great stuff. And by the way, Mike Landrum, little brother, was going to get on, but he lost his internet. So anyway, we don't have time for him anyway now. So, but anyway, I want to close with just a few things. I do want to say that the month of March has just been a great month. We're excited about April now kicking off, and like I said, April, May, and then June, the end of June, going into Atlanta is going to be incredible. I was not able to print the numbers. I know some of the folks like Chris Lillian out of Dallas, I mean, right at 30 IVAs last month. But so many of our leaders, base shop, and we had base shop 70 by 40, 70K by 40. The investment business, I think the hierarchy invested will end up over 50 million again for and new investments this month. But just over the last few months, I was looking, Lane and Holly Fournier, one of the most incredible couple that worked with Jim and Jack Haas. And again, Jim and I have been together literally for a generation, just like Gary Baxter, I know who's on now. But Lane and Holly just went over 100K in income. Couldn't happen to better people down in the bayou, and just incredible family. Christopher Church, Justin Giroux produced another 100K earner. Joe and Claudia Mazzoni. I remember Joe came to our home when he got 100K. We flew him down to spend the weekend with Jill and I, and before he married Claudia, and he was single. And so he was a hot Italian Canadian from Ontario, and Joe flew down, spent the weekend. We had the greatest weekend. I think we shot guns too, which Canadians are amazing that we shoot guns in the South. But anyway, but now Joe got his 6th diamond, over 600K in income. Him and Krishima Bat, 2nd diamond, 200,000 income. Regina Doby got her $100,000 power ring. Stan McGee, great guy, 100K and power ring. This is the last few months. Alicia and Kennery Rocket, 100K power ring. So a lot of good news, a lot of things to celebrate. But one of the things that Glenn Williams said, and by the way, Jill and I just got back from Hawaii, and it was incredible. I mean, it was incredible in that Glenn Williams, when he closed the session, the last meeting, we were sitting at his table. When he walked off the stage, man, he's emotional about this thing. I mean, there are things happening. Talking about a company of destiny, everything's converging like together right now for us to do what we're getting ready to go do. And but anyway, Glenn said, 2022 is we're moving into post-COVID, and that's what's happening now. And, I know that, I mean, to me, the good thing about, I'm of course trying to make lemonade. If there's any good that came out of this, and there's been so many horrible things, with the worst being the people that we've lost, right? But it did help us move toward, kind of pushed us a little more toward technology faster, which is good. And now just looking at where we are, based on all this crap we've all been through the last few years, the good thing, looking, what foundation can we build on? And from a business standpoint, and, we can use we're going one-on-one, we're moving past COVID, we're getting back together. I know that we're going to use it all, right? Just like the next Thursday, Jill and I are doing a meeting for Mike Weaver and Paul Frank on Zoom, right? The end of the month, we'll be with Kelly and Michelle Case and their RVPs down on the Gulf Coast. And so we're excited about that. So, we're getting back out there. We're going to use the technology. The great thing is we can be in so many different places at once. People can plug in and all that, and that's smart to do. But anyway, it's just time to move forward. I read a quote this morning. I don't know if Elon Musk came up with it or part of his team or whatever. They said fear has two meanings, and it's an acronym. Y'all may have already seen this, but fear has two meanings. One is forget everything and run, okay? The other is face everything and rise, right? And I don't know about you, but man, I like the latter, right? Is to face fear. We all have to do it. And, either it's pushing on you or you're pushing on it, right? So anyway, I just, and I agree with Daniel on Atlanta. I've been doing the money back guarantee. I even left out the smile. You don't have to smile. Look, you come to Atlanta, and if it wasn't worth everything that it took for you to do there, let me know, and I'll do a full refund of whatever it cost you, right? And but it's just going to be an incredible time. Again, Jill and I are going to host these events about every 6 to 8 weeks now on a Saturday morning. It'll be a special 2-hour segment on top of the traveling and all that we'll be doing out live, with people. That's one of the things in Hawaii. It was so great to just be there in a room, 500 of us or whatever. And I didn't see any masks, right? It was just felt so great. It felt normal, right? Again. So that's where we're headed. And Atlanta's going to be a great celebration. We're going to have all the things that we need to have to make sure that we are safe, right? With the testing and all that stuff. But we're moving on. And so anyway, we love and appreciate all of you. Anything Jill and I can do to help anybody, we'll be glad to do that. So just let us know. I'll keep comments on for a minute if you have any questions or whatever, and we'll answer that. But other than that, y'all have a great one, man. Have a great weekend. We appreciate you.